G-Man Boxing. Do you know what I mean? Every single live he donates. I see him on other lives donating. He's got the bag on it.
Alright people, midweek report time. So, last one of these, probably the last one for the year. We'll see how next week goes. But there's plenty to talk about because a lot of stuff came out over the last kind of day or so, which is the reason why I left it till today. And the fact I just haven't been feeling the best. I'm over it now. I think that I'm not coughing as much. My head is a bit more clear. I don't have the headaches because I had the flu, simple as. And your head was a little bit fuzzy. Pretty much good to go. Still a little bit, obviously, snazzy, as you can probably tell by the voice. But other than that, we're pretty good. We're pretty good. That's why I didn't do any recording yesterday. It was just still a little bit drained. We're good today. So, some news that's broke over the last 2 days. Well, there's a fair bit. I want to obviously talk about the Fury situation, the Joshua Wilder situation. But they announced the undercard for Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith. Now, we all know this is on pay-per-view. I don't like the fact it's on pay-per-view personally. I don't see the fight as being worthy of being on pay-per-view, to be honest with you. I think that they didn't do Liam Williams versus Liam Smith on pay-per-view. And, there's not a massive world difference between the two in terms of what they bring to the table. Liam Smith, he's beaten Liam Williams twice, yes, but, not by much. So, I'm not jumping for joy this is on pay-per-view. I'm sure no one is. But I said to myself, I've said this on video as well, that if it's a decent undercard, it will maybe sway me into purchasing it and doing a watch-along. Well, the undercard is taking shape, and the first fight is Richard Riakporhe versus Krzysztof Glowacki. That's going to be on the undercard. That doesn't really do anything for me, because Glowacki was showing signs of decline when he fought Myris Briedis 3 years ago. And since then he's been knocked out by Lawrence Okolie in a fight where he couldn't even lay a glove on Okolie. Riakporhe, he's just trying to get onto the scene at world stage. And I guess a knockout against Glowacki will look good. He's got good power in the right hand, does Richard Riakporhe. Decent, actually, very good right hand he has. And I guess, a win like that, it's a name, former champion, been in there with Usyk, Briedis, Okolie. I'm sure for him to get this win would look good in the resume. But I'm not looking at that fight and thinking, oh, it's a 50-50. Far from it. Then there's one here that's just a head scratcher. I mean, it really is. I mean, right, if Joseph Parker is making his return to the ring following his comprehensive loss at the hand of Joe Joyce back in September, and he's fighting Jack Massey. It just makes no sense to me. I mean, that's a former cruiserweight. He has only lost to Riakporhe. I think he lost to Riakporhe. Jeez. I think that he was Riakporhe's last fight before 2020. Because remember, Riakporhe was out of the ring for... Was he out of the ring for nearly 2 years? It was a while anyway. So that's who Parker's going in there with. I really don't understand it. I mean, he's going to come in with ambition. People would say, Joseph Parker should win that fight easy. I've gone to the stage now where I'm going to consider most Joseph Parker fights to be competitive. And that's not me saying that to knock the guy. But the way he's been looking lately in terms of everything, weight, etc., he's going to make fights way harder than they need to be. And if he comes into this fight heavy, he's going to make this fight harder than it needs to be again. I think that Joseph Parker needs to... Look, Andy Lee is a good coach. I think Andy Lee is a good coach. But Joe Parker needs to get out of the Fury team. Because he's too much of a fanboy of Tyson Fury. He wants to do everything like Fury does. He used to wear fly gloves. But Fury wears Paffin Sport. Now he wears Paffin Sport. Joe Parker's best weight is in around the mid-230s. Fury packs on a lot of weight because that's his natural walk-around weight. Whereas Joe Parker, his natural walk-around weight is in the 230s. Oh, Fury packed on a lot of weight, he's better. I'm going to do it. And look what happened against Joe Joyce. So I think that as good a trainer as Andy Lee is, and I think he will be good, Joe Parker needs someone to get a bit more dog in him and just get him out of the comfort zone. So we'll see how that goes. But that's that card. In terms of one of the cards I was looking forward to, and I was looking forward to this one, Oscar Rivas pulled out of his fight with F.A. Ajagba stating an eye injury. Now, that was due to take place on January 14th. And I myself was looking forward to that fight. I thought that was going to be a real interesting fight. Now, still can't shake that. It's just there. But Rivas has had problems with his eyes before. I believe it was 2016, I think it was, where he couldn't get a license, as far as I believe, in the States. That's one of the reasons why he was basing himself out of Canada, because he wasn't able to get a license in the States for a while. Because he had really, I think he's got very short sight. So I wonder, is this part of it? Has he had surgery maybe, and maybe the surgery's gone wrong? I don't know. Either way, he's out of that fight. I was looking forward to that fight now, truth be told. I thought it would have been a real interesting one. You know, you have a Jagba, a wrecking ball, but he's not the most fluid heavyweight you'd ever seen. And, you know, Rivas is not a particularly big heavyweight. For a short heavyweight, he tends to actually fight more at range than he does applying pressure, which is strange. But he's very entertaining. I like watching Rivas, and, you know, he's normally in good scraps, so I would like to have seen that fight. Maybe he'll fight Alan Babbage now for the Bridgerweight title, the Bridgerweight title, the prestigious Bridgerweight title, huh? Has he ever even had a mandatory called for it? That I do not know. In terms of actual mandatories for actual titles, the WBO have struck a deal with Okolie, I should say, has struck a deal with his mandatory challenger, David Light. They're going to be fighting on March the 11th. It's going to be on a Boxer show, so it's going to be on Sky Sports, and it is going to be in London. Now, it's not specifying where in London, but I'm seeing a rumour here that the O2 is booked, Wembley Arena is booked, Ali Pali is booked, and the Royal Albert Hall are all booked. Copper Box. As soon as I seen that, as soon as I seen that it was going to be on Sky and it was Lawrence Okolie, I was thinking to myself, realistically, Copper Box. No disrespect to him, but realistically, he could do the Copper Box no problem. The O2, well, tried, failed. We've seen it last year. Well, this year actually. It's only February. We're not out of 2022 just yet. But that just tanked. So O2 was out of the equation. The Wembley Arena isn't that big an arena. They probably could do the Wembley Arena, but you'll definitely do the Copper Box. Looks likely that's where it's going to be, unless they find somewhere else in London. But I'm struggling. You know, that would be anywhere decent size. So I know he's from Crystal Palace. Isn't that more South London? I know the Copper Box is up in Stratford. I think that's the only real place you could do it. You know, James the Gale has had to do that. Has had to fight in the Copper Box before. That's when he lost to Callum Truex. Was when he lost in the Copper Box a few years ago. That's the situation with Lawrence Okolie. Now, undisputed at heavyweight. The promoter of Alexander Usyk expects the Fury fight to happen no later than March the 4th. Alex Kraikus, the promoter of Alexander Usyk, says the undisputed fight with Tyson Fury will happen no later than the first quarter of 2023. The fight is likely to land in the Middle East. Interesting. He said should happen no later than the 4th of March, any place in the universe. Our knowledge is Tyson Fury is safe and sound. That comes in the wake of Fury announcing post-fight that he'd suffered an injury. I think it was an elbow injury or something like that, or he had a pre-existing injury, I should say, going into the Chisora fight, and he needed surgery on it. But according to Krakus, that Fury is actually okay, and it's not as bad as is perceived, maybe, or maybe he doesn't need the surgery, I don't know, but looks to be all steam ahead. So if they announce it in January, it gives us a good 2 months of prep. It really does, because that's normally kind of when we get the announcements now, 2 months in advance. Look, I've said it once, I'll say it again. All I want in this situation is undisputed. You know, I would hope that we can just get this fight over the line and over and done with. Because at the end of the day, for me, listening to how Alexander Usyk has been talking lately, he's not going to be around long. He is in this for undisputed. He wants that legacy. He wants to be undisputed cruiserweight and heavyweight champion and sail off into the sunset. And I'm sure deep down Tyson Fury does. In fact, definitely he wants it. So I don't see why we can't just get this fight over the line. I don't want to hear people saying, you should just give up one of the titles and make it easier. No. We want to see it for undisputed. I understand it's the best fight and the best in the division, but we want it to be for undisputed. We really do. And I hope we get this March the 4th at the latest. Hey, I'm hoping that's the latest. I'm hoping we get it in the UAE, Saudi, Qatar, wherever. I don't really care where it is, to be honest with you. It's probably going to be in that region of the world, most likely. But I've always said, I don't really mind seeing boxing branch out, because at the end of the day, if you think about it like this, right? I like boxing being an international sport. I don't really want it to be always resigned to the big fights in the UK and the big fights in the US. Branch it out a bit. Don King is a terrible, horrendous, despicable human being. But he did make boxing global. He took the big fights. You had Ali Frazier, the Trill in Manila in the Philippines. You had Foreman Frazier won. That was in Kingston. Foreman versus Norton. That was in Caracas, Venezuela. All promoted by Don King. Rumble in the Jungle. Zahir in Africa. That was the one good thing that Don King did do, was that he took boxing and he gave it to different parts of the world. And I'd like to see it. I'd like to see some of these big fights happen outside of the norm. The New Yorks, the Los Angeles, the Las Vegas, London, Manchester. Branch out a little bit. I'd like to see it. I would. Now, in terms of other news, so Alexander Usyk obviously got slapped with a mandatory defence with Daniel Dubois. Now, it's been reported here that Daniel Dubois has suffered a tear to his ACL, and that was in his fight with Kevin Lerena. Now that's interesting, because a lot of speculation was happening during that fight. Some were saying, it looked like he tweaked his knee or tweaked his ankle. Others were saying no, it was just a concussive effect of the shot. I've gone back and watched that fight a couple of times now. I've watched it about twice, and each time I've watched it, now bear in mind, you watch it after the fact. When you're watching it live, you're kind of caught up a bit in the moment. You're just like, what happened there? What? When you watch it live, you know the fact. It looked more to me like he was genuinely buzzed. That just the legs just stiffened and he just lost his equilibrium. Now, I don't know, maybe when he fell or when he went down, maybe the injury, I don't know. Maybe because his legs were jelly, the way he landed, I don't know. But apparently he's got a torn ACL. That's a pretty serious enough injury. So it says he'll be out of action for several months. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Daniel Dubois until July, August. Probably July at the earliest, seriously. He could be out of action for a while with an injury like that, Tears and stuff like that, breaks are one thing, but when you start tearing into things, you're going to have problems. That's when you're going to start having a few problems. Let's see what else has been happening as well. Oh yeah, I was interested. I was seeing Deontay Wilder was posting some training clips. And I also seen, it was a boxing scene article, and it was just quoting Eddie Hearn. And he was talking about the fact that he wants to actually get the Wilder-Joshua fight done. And he basically, one of the things he said in it, which I took it as a kind of take it or leave it offer, was Eddie Hearn saying, we'll put an offer on the table. If you like it there, if you don't, we'll take it away. And I kind of took that to mean it was like, are you saying this is going to be the offer? If you don't like it, tough, no negotiation, take it or leave it? I hope that wasn't the case. I know he was saying that Joshua is a DAZN fighter. So it would have to be shown on DAZN. Doesn't necessarily mean Wilder has to be on DAZN or sign an exclusive deal with DAZN. But it would mean that Joshua, the fight would have to be co-broadcast between, I would imagine, Showtime, Fox and DAZN. But I just found that interesting. In terms of Wilder-Joshua, I'm not going to turn around and say Fury versus Usyk is a bigger fight commercially than Joshua versus Wilder, because in my opinion it's not. I think that is one of the biggest fights in world boxing. Seriously, it is. Because, both guys have taken L's. They're not champions anymore. And I think in 2018, for Undisputed, it would have been, Wilder got an amazing offer for the DAZN, 100 mil. A Dominic Brazil fight, and then was it a Joshua fight, the Joshua rematch? So an incredible offer. And somehow he was talked out of it and told, no, turn it down. The biggest amount you'd ever get, best paydays you'd ever get, and no, you'll turn that down. And what that ended up doing was it showed Deontay Wilder the kind of money he could get, which is why fights like Brazil, I think Brazil was on pay-per-view. I know the Ortiz rematch was on pay-per-view and they tanked. Helenius was on pay-per-view, it tanked. So they knew, right, he's going to be looking for more money now after seeing that offer. So hence the reason why a lot of his fights are on pay-per-view now and tanking. Because Wilder needs a dance partner, like a Joshua, like a Fury, and then we'll start seeing, some of the dollars go. But until then, I just don't see. Wilder to me just doesn't have that sort of sway. But him against Joshua, even now, a few hours later, take my money. Seriously, I think it's a great fight. Newly crowned IBF featherweight champion Luis Alberto Lopez was asked, would he give Josh Warrington a rematch? And he said, and I quote, "No, I never would. He is a very dirty fighter. He doesn't deserve to be in pro boxing with his fighting style. He can cause an incident to other boxers. He shouldn't be allowed in boxing." Luis Alberto Lopez was really not too pleased with how Josh Warrington conducted himself in their fight. And Warrington fought that fight was a majority decision win for Lopez. And I was glad to see him get the decision, truth be told. Not because I dislike Josh Warrington, but because how often do we see it in a close fight? It goes to the home fighter. And I felt Lopez did enough to nick that anyway. But Warrington only really came into the fight when he started playing the dirty game. And that's no way to win a fight. In my opinion, if you can't win fair, you shouldn't be there. It's like with Bernard Hopkins near the end of his career. He was getting very dirty. I know he was pushing 50 years old, but it's like, if you can't win fair, why are you here? Just retire. So that's how I kind of felt it with Josh Warrington. And besides, it was a mandatory defence, so there's no rematch clause as far as I'm aware. So he should be able to sail off into the sunset. Jose Ramirez, now this is interesting. He's reportedly turned down his mandatory shot at Regis Prograis. Because he doesn't agree with the 65-35 purse split. Strange. Teofimo Lopez is next in line for Prograis. Now, why has Jose Ramirez turned that down? I do not know. I mean, I think, is it the WBO or is it the IBF, one or the other? Where I think it's the IBF, where if you're mandatory, it's 80-20. As far as I was aware last time I checking, in favour of the champion. So, 65-35 it's not too shabby, especially as a mandatory challenger. It's not far off 60-40. So that's interesting. Lopez versus Prograis next. I mean, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I have Prograis in that fight if it happens. I think that Prograis is slept on. He's underrated. I think he's tremendously talented. I think Prograis has pound for pound level skills. He's there in every department. And I think that Teofimo Lopez has not looked himself since he lost to George Kambosos. It's not the same fighter who fought Lomachenko. In my opinion, it's not. And even if we got the same fighter who fought Lomachenko, I still don't think he necessarily beats Regis Prograis. Because it's a different style altogether. And Prograis is talented. He's a very, very talented fighter. So I'm really kind of... Look, if we get the best Lopez, I still probably would pick Regis Prograis to beat him. Will he take it now? If he gets offered the mandatory shot, that's another story. He seems to want to go down the WBO route, the Josh Taylor route. We'll wait and see what happens there. Canelo Alvarez on if he'll fight John Ryder next. It'll be interesting to fight him in London. It will be very big. But the truth is, I have not negotiated an opponent yet. I'm focused on rehabbing my hand and see how I feel in January. Alright, so Alvarez still looking to get over the injuries. He's had hand trouble before, hasn't he, Alvarez? And looking to get over that injury and then make an announcement in the new year. At the end of the day, he's probably not going to fight until... No, he's definitely not going to fight until May. So he's probably time enough announcing who and when, etc. he's going to fight. But I would imagine if I was a betting man, John Ryder be Bookie's favourite to be in there with Canelo next. the WBO have named Naoya Inoue super champion at bantamweight. So I hope to God that's not one of those you-know-what titles. But it means that, it just means that he'll be mandatory for Stephen Fulton when he moves up, which is hopefully soon, because I think that he's going to be a good addition to the super bantamweight division. So Naoya Inoue, him against Akhmadaliev or him against Fulton. And I think he might be okay at super bantam, but the minute he goes to 126, that's when we'll see some of those attributes start to fade a bit. Now, old Fish Eyes was on TalkSport, of course he was, and he says that Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, of course it'll be on pay-per-view, but we'd see an increase, a further increase. Fish Eyes, seriously. He charged $27.95 for Fury Chisora, and guess what? He's going to charge it up again. We're into the 30s now, lads. I'm telling you now, it's going to be in the 30s. I don't say that to be a buzzkill, but it's going to be in the 30s. Will I pay it? Yeah, I will. Undisputed. Of course I'll pay it. But still, yeah, that's crazy. I still can't quite get over. I seen Eddie Hearn saying that something like 200,000 people bought Fury versus Chisora. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, surely not. Surely it couldn't have been that high. 200,000. That's too high. Because £28 for that? No. You'd have to be out your mind to have paid for that. Ben Shalom was actually saying that Savannah Marshall has invoked a rematch clause to fight Clarissa Shields next, but he's actually going to want to keep Savannah Marshall active, have 1 or 2 fights before going into the Shields rematch. So 2023 looks like we're going to see Marshalls versus Shields 2. And Boxer have another announcement. Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall rematch is signed. It's going to now happen in March instead of February. It's going to happen in Glasgow, Scotland. And although it doesn't say it here, it's going to be on pay-per-view. I've seen one of the reasons why it was moved from February to March is because it would be too soon after the Eubank Smith pay-per-view. So, look, I don't think Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. is a pay-per-view fight, nor do I feel Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall 2 is. I know there's beef there, I know there's controversy from the first fight, etc. But even if they'd done that pay-per-view in the summer, I would have said it's not a pay-per-view. They're doing it now, over a year later. Mate, I know why he's doing it. He obviously wants to pay these guys and get them paid, but still, man, that's on pay-per-view. Alright. And Chris Billum-Smith, his next fight will take place at Bournemouth's Vitality Stadium. So Chris Billum-Smith selling out stadiums now. Now, Vitality Stadium, where Bournemouth play, that's not, I think as far as Premier League stadiums go, that's not one of the biggest. I'll just double check. Bournemouth Stadium. I'm pretty sure the Vitality Stadium isn't one of the bigger ones. In fact, it's not giving me it there, but I'm pretty sure it's not one of the bigger ones in the Premier League anyway. So, Chris Billum-Smith, I mean, the Bournemouth area, they seem to come out in full for him. They really do. So, I tell you, Ben Shalom got lucky there. Billum-Smith, I don't see him going much further, truth be told. He's got power, but I think he's just too easy to hit. But he will have some fun nights down in Bournemouth before it's all said and done. Put it like that. In terms of everything else, I think we've pretty much done it all there. So I'm going to call it with this. Stay tuned tomorrow and Saturday. Mark me on this. 2 lives in 2 days. We're rounding out the new year. We're rounding out the new year in style. And I've got a video. I've got a weird one, right, for New Year's of an idea. And I don't think anyone's ever done this on here, for boxing wise. Because I watch other channels do it for different sports. I'm thinking, why not try it? So I've got a little idea of a video for New Year's Eve. I'm thinking of doing, and just watch the space on it. It's not a documentary on it. It's just a normal type of video. But I want to see how it goes. I don't think anyone's ever done this, and I want to see how people react to it in the comments when they hear some of the things I say. And it's going to be interesting. It's boxing related, of course. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, lads and lass, if you haven't already. For now, I'll talk to you. Peace.